Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to another of the Spark Venture Funding webinars. We've got another two exciting businesses to show to you today, ArrayPatch and Quadrant Scientific, both who are live on the platform at the moment. I'll introduce you to Waleed and to Darren in a few seconds. But first of all, I just wanted just to talk to you about Spark for a second or two. We are now kind of done over 60 companies on our platform now and raised significant money for many of those companies. And very happy to do that to our 14 or growing 14,000 investors that we've had on the site as members for some of them for a very short period of time, but some of them for over 7 years now, which is great to see. Many of those are recurring investors who are building up a very sizable portfolio in some very strong businesses that we've showcased over that time, and two of those of course which we think are presenting here today. So first of all, I'd like to introduce you to Waleed and to Darren. So Darren, Waleed, would you like to please put on your cameras? Waleed and Darren are from ArrayPatch, of course. ArrayPatch is live on the platform at the moment, and is a platform technology which has been a spin out of UCC that Waleed has been involved with for many years. And it is a microneedle a platform where you are creating the active ingredient into these very tiny needles that just go underneath underneath the surface of the skin, which are a delivery mechanism for these drugs. And the first drug is to tackle nail fungal, but there are many other ones that they've highlighted as well. But I won't steal Waleed's thunder by naming all of those and going into it in any more detail, and he can do a far better job than I can. So Waleed, if you'd like to share your screen with the with your presentation, and I'll let you crack on, and I'll see you in 10 or 12 minutes, and we can then go on to have the questions and answers done. So just before I get you to start, if you do have a question, please do place it into the Q&A box down below, and I'll read it out to Darren and to Waleed when the time comes, and hopefully they can answer your questions. So I'll go silent. Waleed, over to you, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Can you see my full screen?
That looks good. Go for it.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for the introduction. ArrayPatch. So at ArrayPatch, we are re-imaging the needle injection to make the needle very tiny and also pain-free. And even better, it dissolves in the skin to deliver medications more safe and more effective. And we call this patent technology DERMAP. DERMAP is set to change how the medication will be delivered in future, more safe and more effective. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Waleed Faisal, and I am the CEO and co-founder of ArrayPatch. Darren?
Yes, pleased to be here. It's Darren Cunningham. I'm the CFO, and I'll be joining Waleed presenting the company.
So at ArrayPatch, we are advancing therapeutics to treat millions around the world by leveraging our patent technology, DERMAP. It's a platform dissolvable microneedle. The breakthrough in this technology is that we made the microneedle or the needle out of pure medicine. No solvent, no polymers, 100% drug loading. And at the initial, we are targeting generic medicine or pre-approved medicine, which means has a short and low development pathway. And also now we're expanding our target. So now we are working with new medication and also with drug which facing upcoming patent expiry. The technology attracts strong pharma interest, and we have partnering talks is underway with 3 pharma companies. ArrayPatch is a spun out from UCC, backed by more than 1.3 million euro non-diluted fund. We have a global experienced team. The technology well recognized with many awarded national and international. We are post a proof of concept, and we are raising 3 million euro to advance our clinical trials. Term sheet is signed with our lead investor, Lakeside Capital, with more than 2.2 million euro already secured and committed. Our technology, DIRMAP, is a platform technology, multi-therapeutic application for nail fungal infections. Our portfolio is including nail fungal infection product, skin cancer product, diabetes and metabolic disorder, and also for migraine. And the first product being developed is for the treatment of nail fungal infection. Why nail fungal infection? Is the feedback from key opinion leaders was very positive. It has a short and low risk development pathway, and also we secured a potential partner here. 1 in 4 people can be affected with nail fungal infection at any given time. And this ratio can go up to 1 in 2 if the person diabetics. Nail fungal infection or onychomycosis is a disease affecting the nail caused by the same fungus which causing the athlete's foot. Current treatment take up to 1 year. Only 1 out of 3 show cure response. The current treatment also carry a severe liver toxicity. Market size. The market size for antifungal was expected to surpass $6.2 billion by 2027 with a growth rate of 5.6%. Our beachhead market is diabetic patient. More than 150 million diabetic patients around the world are suffering from nail fungal infections. North America and Europe are our initial target market, with several million cases diagnosed every year. 40% of them are using topical treatments, which are SAM of $1.4 billion. Our solution, DIRMAP, and DIRMAP is a package of 12 microneedle batch for a 12-week of treatments. Every batch applied once a week and on the skin just behind the nail. And then it left on the skin over 1 week. DIRMAP is a small batch, pain-free, as the size of a small coin. When it's applied to the skin, it penetrates the outer layer of the skin, start to dissolve and release the medication at the site of infection with no pain. Our preclinical data shows that compared to our competitors in the market, like Lamisil cream, Lamisil tablets, and Sporonox, our product show at only 1/10 of the dose, show more than 140 times drug deposition in the skin, which can translate it to a more effective and less frequent use. And also, our preclinical data shows that the very small amount reaches the blood circulation, which means a very low side effects. The team at Repatch believe that our product, IT ZITRMAP, will provide or give a profit offer benefits over the current treatment by doubling the efficacy, reducing the treatment time to 12 weeks, reducing the liver toxicity by delivering the medication directly to the nail root. And this will give a high patient compliance for the treatment. Our development pathway will leverage the short 505(b)(2) pathway because we are using a pre-approved medication, itraconazole. This pathway will include phase 1 trials of only 12 participants over 12 months, followed by a second pivotal study of phase 2/3 of 150 patients over 18 months. And then we end by marketing authorization and FDA approval by year 4 in 2029. We are working with one of the top CDMO in the world in the area of microneedle. We are based in US, and also we get an input from our CRO for the clinical trials. Danny?
Thanks, Waleed. So we've identified what we believe is an appropriate commercialization strategy for this lead product, ITZ DIRMAP for nail fungal. So our plan is to identify and secure an incumbent player in the space who already has the capacity and the networks and the infrastructure to successfully launch, promote, and make available this medicine to patients via pharmacies and hospitals. So this is an appropriate strategy for a company of our stage of development. It de-risks, it's a de-risk strategy, reduces our financial risk and clinical risk, provides validation. And the idea here is that the revenues that we would expect to generate from partnering the program, upfront payments, milestones, and royalties, will allow us to invest then in the subsequent pipeline programs. And we're already talking to a number of incumbents in the space, as Waleed mentioned, and those talks are going very favorably. Next slide, please. So why would they be interested in a program like this? Well, principally because it's an innovative approach to nail fungus, and it is targeting an unmet need. And furthermore, we believe it will generate peak annual revenues in the order of about $250 million. We base this on market shares primarily of the topical treatments, which are largely ineffective. So we see a good opportunity to claim 10% of that space, possibly more, and then 5% of oral, and even perhaps a percentage of OTC. The other important component here is the pricing. We see a pricing around 1,500 per treatment course, which we've road tested with the payers reimbursement groups, and that has been received very positively for the target profile that we are expecting. Next slide, please. So how we see this in terms of progressing and generating value, looking at along the bottom here, the funds required initially, or we're looking at this seed round of 3 million, followed by potentially a Series A. But taking the seed round, this will fund the company for 2 years. It'll take us from where we are right now, where we already have positive proof of concept data, but we will use those funds to complete GMP, so manufacturing scale up, and then executing a value enhancing phase 1 clinical study with the product. And that itself could be an exit opportunity out to an incumbent player in the space. But were we to continue with this program, we would raise another 12.5 million to complete the final series of clinical studies. And the more we invest in it, the greater the value generated. On the next slide, you will see, we get some confidence around valuation creation. Looking at benchmark deals in the space, there's a good track record of pharma companies looking for creative and innovative new treatment solutions in the dermatology space and even in the nail fungus space, and we list a few of them here. Also worth mentioning that while interest and exits may be to pharmas who are active in the dermatology space for this particular product, we also see an exit opportunity potentially regarding the whole platform, where you might have CDMOs or contract manufacturers who are attracted to bolt on this drug delivery platform to their offering, and we see many examples of that as well. Next slide, please. We mentioned already the pipeline, but maybe just to reinforce that this is not just a single product company. And while we have a very clear focus on the lead program, we're also in the background working on bringing through the next iterations. And now these are all using different active drugs, but with the same DermMap technology. So these are huge market opportunities worth over 80 billion in total. And just taking basal cell carcinoma, where we already have preclinical proof of concept, we see potential revenues in the order of $500 million peak sales in the US alone. So we think these are attractive opportunities. We're working on them, and we're already talking to potentially interested parties. Next slide, please. Just mentioned this in passing, that we've already had an opportunity to take our innovations to pharma companies, and we're engaging and we're getting positive response. So the idea here is that as we generate clinical data, we already have parties in the wings interested to engage. Next slide, please.
Okay.
Go ahead, Waleed.
Yeah, so we are now raising 3 million euro as a seed fund to advance our clinical trials. And this seed fund will cover the scaling, the manufacturing, and also completing phase 1 clinical trials. At the moment, we have more than 2.2 million euro already committed or secured from the first close. We are secured the lead investor, Lakeside Capital. We are an HBCU client, an Enterprise Island client. We are eligible for the EIS in Ireland with 50% tax rebate, and we also approved in UK for EIS and SEIS. The team. So our executive team has a wealth of global experience and accumulating more than 75 years of industrial and commercial expertise, including myself as a CEO of the company. It is more than 3 million euro now, and which led to the incorporation of the company. Darren, our CFO, and Darren has more than 25 years of industrial experience, and Darren was co-founder and former CEO of two biotech companies. And we have to say also he has executed multiple acquisition and licensing deals for over hundreds of $1 million. Our CDO, Eric Devendance, and Eric, 25 years of regulatory affairs in manufacturing and operation, and also he's a specialist of quality assurance, quality control. Ryan Pamsi, our CEO, 25 years in microneedle development and launching, and he's expert in designing and implementing quality management system. We're also surrounding ourselves with a very strong advisory team, Professor Abay Nakrim from UCC, more than 13 years of microneedle R&D, two clinical advisory, Professor Alan Irvin from Trinity, Dr. Mary McDonald's from US, and the post looking for the clinical trial design and be our chief investigator for the trial between US and Europe. Clinical advisory also Tor Laboda with more than 15 years of industrial experience, and he is an ex-vice president of Leo Pharma. So why invest in a repatch? It's a unique microneedle technology which improves the safety and efficacy of medication delivery. We are delivering an pre-approved medication, which means there is a short and low-risk development pathway. It's a platform solution with a strong pharma interest, which means we have a multiple exit opportunity. The market size of the first application is more than $6 billion. And on top of that, we have the right team who did this before. This is a repatch. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Waleed. Thank you very much, Darren. Excellent delivery, and that I think shows off the company very, very well. Just to confirm, the pre-money valuation of the business is 4.5 million. As Waleed said, it is a 50% EIS. That basically gives you an effective valuation of 2.25 million euros for the valuation. So as you can see, I think it shows you it's great value to be had here. And as Waleed said, yeah, there are many exit opportunities for this as well because of the fact that it is a platform technology that has lots of opportunities, not just in the nail fungal, but the other delivery mechanisms as well. Anyway, we have a number of questions in, guys, so let me pose a couple of those to you. What traction have you received, have you achieved so far with, I think they're talking with regards to patents maybe, and with progression of trials so far, Waleed, please.
Yeah, thanks so much. So first, this technology is a patent technology. We're filing this patent since 2020. So it's now 5 years in PCT stage. And also recently we acquired a new patent from a French company in the area also of microneedles, which is expanding our therapeutic application. Now we are moving to the diabetes area and metabolic disorders. From the preclinical, we finished all the preclinical data. We are now in the process of starting the clinical trial this year with our CTC, our CRO in Sweden. And then the technology itself is well recognized, well awarded, and recently, just 2 months ago, we are won the best seed corn company competition in all over Ireland. The technology itself is backed by a non-dilutive fund invested in the technology for the last 5 years, more than 1.8 million euro. Partnership, you can see we are in a high level of discussion with a lead pharma company in the area of metabolic disorders application, and also for the nail fungal infection and the skin cancer area.
Very good. Thank you, Waleed. So a question also in here, are there any similar microneedle alternatives available in development in other companies, I guess, I think the question is about.
Yeah, there is the microneedle is in the research and clinical trial for the last maybe 10 years. And the big differentiation for us that we made the needle out of pure medicine. So we can load 100% of medication our needles. Different companies, they work with polymers or an excipient to make the needle, and then you load it with 5% or 10% of drugs. So they are very limited how much you can add, and also for the composition of polymer make a lot of issue for the clinical trial. In our case, we just made it like 100% medicine, like how you produce a glass of pure sand. So you convert powder sand to a glass. We also convert the powder medicine to a glassy liquid crystalline structure, and we shape it in a needle. So you get needle just pure medicine. That's why we have a very short clinical approval, and also we can load high amount of medicine and we can apply it in different medication. We have skin cancer, we have the metabolic disorders, the nail fungal infection, and migraine. Other companies only were focused in vaccines because they couldn't add too much amount of drugs in the needles.
So just to qualify that, if you can, please, Waleed. So the pattern that you've got and the USP that you have is the fact that you've created these needles out of 100% of the active ingredient, as opposed to having the polymer in there. I think you mentioned, and the you've called it to me before, the cement that holds this needle together. So yours is completely the active ingredient, and therefore you can administer more of that ingredient to the site without having any other complications around that.
Yeah, you're right. So the micro needle always make like how you're building the wall. So you build it from cement, which is polymer or excipient, and you add some sand, which is a drug. If you add too much sand, the cement will break down. So you are limiting the very small amount of 5 to 10%. What we did is just we create this wall out of pure sand, just sand. So we convert the powder medicine to a liquid structure, and then we shape it in a needle. So we made the wall out of just sand, out of medicine.
Out of just the raw medicine that is going to be
Yeah,
delivered
the raw powder
directly.
medicine. Yeah.
And
And
and and,
every time
and
you change the medicine, you different application.
and not to work the point too much, but and it's because of the fact that the API is in this kind of 100% format. You the application for the nail fungal, for example, couldn't be done with the other microneedles because they couldn't deliver enough of the active ingredient to the site. Is that right?
Yeah, so most of the application we used, other company cannot use it because they couldn't reach the amount of the drug you can reach. The only area they work is very small and potent medication like vaccine. So you find all microneedle company only in vaccine area. We
Okay.
can work with vaccine, with peptides like GLP-1 for the diabetes or weight loss. We can work with nail fungal infection, high dose. We can work with skin cancer. All of this is not applicable for other types.
And that this rolls into another question as well. So, with these different platforms, are the investors investing in one of these, or is it across the whole platform?
No, the investors are investing in Array Patch as a whole platform. Okay. But so they invest in all these applications because it's a part of the company.
Very good. Next question. What do you see as the most significant risk in delivering your strategy? And is there anybody you are aware of developing a similar delivery technology?
Yeah, that brings us again to the same question we mentioned here. So I maybe give put this here in the screen. So I'll give you an example of company working in this area. You can see it here. This most of the company are active in this area. Sorry. Okay, and you can see all the companies working in vaccine because they are limited how much drugs they can deliver. It's less than 1 milligram. Vaccine, the only vaccine. The only company which can work is a high concentration up to 10 milligram is our company. So we can work with small molecule and peptides and also proteins for vaccines. And that's what makes.
Sorry, Waleed. But for some reason, we can't see the very bottom line there. So that bottom line says array patch and the two green ticks there. I don't know why we can't see that bottom line, but anyway.
You see it now?
No, but I think there we can. There we can. It's gone up to the top. That's
So
perfect.
that's what makes us different. We can reach a very high dose, which can be applicable for small molecules, different medication, and that's what make us unique as a platform technology.
Very good. Okay, and I'm just conscious of time. So the last question we'll ask is that what are the key milestones over the next 12 to 24 months then?
Okay, Darren.
Yeah, so I mean, with this use of proceeds of 3 million, we've identified very specific and very clear value enhancing milestones, but I can summarize it down into two key ones. First is the synthesis, the scaling up of the manufacturing of the patches from lab scale into a scale that's suitable for phase 1 trials. So that's an important de-risking step. And then the second step is actually using those patches in the phase 1 trial, because here we'll get to see the patch in action, albeit in healthy volunteers initially. We will get to evaluate any potential site risk, which we don't anticipate, and also looking at some potential biomarkers to give us confidence around designing the final study that we can bring to the FDA. So two very clear, important milestones that we've carefully scoped out and costed, and this is exactly where the use of proceeds will be going to.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, guys, listen, I want to make sure that we've got enough time for Quadrant as well. So there are a number of questions here that I have not got a chance to ask, just run out of time. But I will get you to answer those, and we can then post them up onto the site so that the questionnaire can see your response to those. So, but thank you very much indeed. That was very useful. So again, live on the platform. 4.5 million pre-money valuation with the EAAS at 50%. That really reduces it significantly. And yes, so guys, if sorry, investors, if you want to invest, then please go onto the platform and do so. So thank you very much, guys. Much
Thank you.
appreciated, and we'll catch up later on. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Perhaps I can ask Killian and Alex to switch their cameras on. Guys, you're very welcome, and thanks very much for coming along to the webinar today. Quadrant Scientific is live on the platform also. It's an electromagnetic navigation platform for image-guided medical procedures that, again, rather than me try and butcher it, that Killian will explain in far better ways than I can. But no, it's a really nice piece of technology that where they've managed to create a chip that they can miniaturize the chips that they put on the tip of the catheter that's going into the body that will give it an exact location, so you can actually see which blood vessel you're going down, or which atria, which part of the heart you're in, or wherever the procedure is actually happening. Quadrant itself, they've had 3 DTI grants worth over 2 million euros now put into the company. The chip manufacturer Intricon, who are doing the work with Quadrant here, have also invested a significant amount of money, 500,000 euros, into the business. It's of course patent protected. And is at a 7 million pre-money valuation with an EAAS of 35% in there. So it is a very good business that you should definitely have consider the opportunities with. So Killian, perhaps you could share your screen and go through your presentation. I'll go quiet and I'll let people add their questions into the Q&A, and we'll talk again in 10 or 12 minutes after your presentation. So please go ahead.
Okay, thanks very much, Chris. Right, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar. And I suppose just a quick intro. So I'm Killian, as Chris introduced. I'm the CEO of Quadrant Scientific, and with me here is Alex Yeager, who's our CTO and also co-founder of Quadrant. So okay, I'll just share my screen. You can see that okay, Chris, can you?
Yep, perfect. Thanks.
Okay, great. Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah. So, sorry, let me minimize that. Sorry, I'm trying to minimize. Okay. All right. So we are Quadrant Scientific. So we are a company founded in 2018. We're based in Cork, and our whole area of expertise and what we focus the business on is the development of electromagnetic navigation technology. And there's a couple of different facets to that, which we'll get through. And as well as also developing this new technology, we also operate a very successful consulting and design service in the area of EM navigation also. So I suppose the primary problem that we're trying to solve with EM navigation is basically the minimization of harmful X-ray imaging. So basically, in any, be very familiar in any kind of surgical procedure, the kind of de facto and most commonly used imaging technology is those that are based with X-ray. And, and problem with this kind of technology is that obviously there's quite a lot of radiation, and the radiation is coming from, your kind of most commonly used imaging modalities, which would be X-ray and CT scans. So, you might be aware that obviously they're harmful to your patients and so on and so forth, but what's more of a issue is actually the risk it causes the actual the patients. And if you see our friend here in the image, you can see the kind of equipment and gear that physicians wear on a daily basis to protect themselves from the harmful X-ray exposure. So, there's for the last, couple of decades, there's been an industry-wide push for an alternative, safer and faster alternatives that we can image so the physicians can see where they're going inside the body and know that they're able to hit the targets with confidence. And electromagnetic navigation is a viable alternative to X-ray imaging, but the current solutions that are out there are kind of quite complicated. They're unreliable and very expensive. And for this reason, that there's been kind of quite limited market adoption. So just to kind of talk about like what is EM navigation or electromagnetic navigation. So it's basically the use of harmless electromagnetic fields to determine the position of surgical devices. So we like to think of it as a GPS navigation system for surgeons. And much like a GPS navigation system, this allows the physician to basically see where they are inside the human body and then map the trajectory for how do they get from point A to point B in the most effective means possible. And there's quite a lot of different uses for the technology. Some of the main one is definitely cardiology. So the whole area of physiologically catheters and the kind of associated devices. But other areas that it's growing in use is in particular in bronchoscopy and ENT. There are two major areas that it's used, and as well as kind of growing in other areas in terms of colonoscopy and neurosurgery, for instance. So just what does it look like in real life? So what we're showing here is the Quadrant EM navigation system in operation. So what you're seeing here is it's basically a lone phantom. It's a representative of the human airways, and we have a catheter device that has one of our EM sensors integrated into the tip of the device. And as the device moves through the anatomy, we can track its location in real time. So and a big difference here is that, with X-ray, it's not real time necessarily. It might require a stop in the procedure, and not always is it in 3D either, So with EM navigation, we get both real time, three-dimensional navigation that you just don't get that same kind of real time responsiveness with most X-ray imaging modalities. And CT gives you good performance, but then it's quite slow to use and a lot of harmful X-ray exposure. So a big problem with EM navigation as it exists today comes from the sensors that are used in the technology. Now, these sensors are these tiny little coils. Typically they're less than a half a millimeter in diameter, and these are embedded in the tip of a catheter device. These are wound with wire that's way thinner than a typical human hair. And a big problem is that these are typically manually made devices, so they're quite expensive to manufacture. They're very fragile. They're very easy to break. And as a result, they're quite expensive, and that limits the adoption of the technology. So our solution that we have developed for Quadrant is a groundbreaking on-chip silicon device that basically replaces these fragile copper wound coils that I showed in the previous slide with a completely integrated silicon device. So the idea is that we were able to miniaturize all the necessary sensors and digital interfaces necessary onto a single silicon chip. And this chip can be easily integrated in basically any medical device that you can conceive of, which allows us to track that device. So a good example of an application for this is quite a complicated cardiovascular imaging device for looking at the electrical activity in your heart, for instance. With this technology, the devices are small enough and cost effective enough that they could easily be integrated into every single arm of a complicated system such as this. And this allows much more accurate tracking and visualization of the entire shape of that device, which has a knock-on effect on increasing the targeting accuracy and gives better clinical outcomes to the patients. And the technology has been patent protected, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the future. But the key takeaway from this new on-chip device is that it is substantially cheaper than the alternative. It's very scalable to large volume production, and that's some of the main applications. And so if we just from a high level, like the left-hand side here shows this is what traditional electromagnetic sensor manufacturing looks like. It's hundreds of low paid workers, hand winding coils effectively. And what we're trying to do is bring this manufacturing, to the 21st century effectively, and use, commonly used silicon fabrication techniques, from companies that you might be aware of, such as TSMC or similar um, companies that can basically mass manufacture these sensors in the millions in a couple of months, whereas it's just impossible to reach that kind of level of manufacturing with the current techniques. And so we've been developing this technology since about 2018. We've gone through various different iterations, and we've done some initial preclinical validation of the technology. So in a recent study from a couple of years ago, we took this device, we integrated into a catheter, and we're able to navigate through the airways of a live breathing pig's lung. So, that kind of brings the kind of initial kind of validation to the technology. One thing worth mentioning on this, we're a component part of a medical system. We're not a fully finished medical device as such. So, we don't necessarily need to do inhuman trials or extensive clinical validations. That's then up to our kind of end customer. That's their responsibility to do that final FDA submissions, for instance, or your MDR applications in the EU, for instance. So that it takes a lot of the onus off us so that we can focus on getting the technology complete. And some obviously we've been live on the Spark platform for quite some time, but also kind of ongoing conversations we've been having is we're quite far along the way with a strategic investor. I can't go into too much details, but it's someone in the area of EM navigation. They're familiar with this technology, so we're very close to closing out our next funding round. And it's something hopefully in the next couple of weeks, or we're hoping to have some announcements in that area, and once things have been nailed down. Yeah, and some of our latest customer engagements. We recently visited several potential customers in the States, and some of the big companies that we've been having initial engagements with would be Abbott and Medtronic, which are two of the largest users of this technology. They sell hundreds of millions of dollars worth of catheters using EM navigation already. And so we've met with a lot of these companies, and they appreciate the new technology that we're bringing to the market, and like it solves that complicated manufacturing issues that they keep running into, is that the sensors are too expensive. They break during the processing, so that they end up losing a lot of devices in manufacture, and it's just the overall cost. They can't manufacture the devices at a reasonable price point. And that's kind of a limiting factor to why this technology isn't more in use across, the broader medical device arena as such, because it's just not cost effective with the current sensor technology. And if we just look at it, there's a whole wide range of potential customers for this technology. Our number one target is your device manufacturers, the likes of Stryker, Medtronic, and Abbott, Johnson and Johnson. These are all companies that already use EM navigation and have quite a huge market share. But other areas that we're engaging with is kind of more on your second tier contract manufacturers, for instance, that are actually manufacturing the catheters and devices as subcontract basis for the likes of the larger device manufacturers, and also working with startup companies that are looking at new types of EM navigation as alternatives, and then also the existing EM sensor manufacturers are very interested in the technology as a way to differentiate themselves from their competitors. Yeah, and so I've mentioned the competitors, and just in terms of IP, so we have a patent. This technology was initially developed at the Tyndall National Institute in UCC, and we have since licensed that technology, or we've licensed the patent for the technology from Tyndall into Quadrant, and we have an exclusive license for use in the medical field for the next 20 years. And just kind of briefly, just on financials, if we kind of break down the whole EM navigation market, it's a multi-billion dollar market, and that's just in the US alone, and it's building quite substantially year on year, and it's growing, in particular in Europe and in other parts of the world also. And how our kind of business model is divided, it's kind of three kind of sections to that. There's the actual EM navigation hardware, the capital piece of equipment that sits in the hospital, for instance. There's the consulting that we offer on the whole EM sensor integration, and then where the big profit and revenue generation aspects is on the actual sale of the sensors and sensor assemblies. And just to kind of sum up kind of where we are on our funding journey, we had a pre-seed round back in 2023. And we had a strategic investor came on board, and we're also the recipient of EI HPSU funding. As Chris mentioned, we've been fortunate enough to receive 3 DTAF grants with over €2 million in grant aid to date received, and our most recent DTIF that we've been awarded has been kind of the most substantial of all of that, with €1.2 million in non-dilutive funding, and as well as that, the Tyndall National Institute, who we're working with on the development of this technology, have also received €3 million of that DTIF grant. So we're very well poised with a lot of funding in place, or grant aid funding, but to fully utilize that DTIF grant aid that we have, we're looking to raise €2 million over the next couple of years to basically bring our product from kind of development stage through to a market ready device that we can then look at further funding rounds where we can scale up production and bring the technology to the wider market. And yeah, I'll just kind of sum up with our team. So there's 8 of us in the company currently, and that's a broad range of coming from academic and industry backgrounds, and so we've a capable team, and we have the necessary resources to get this product to market, just pending closing out this next funding round. And just to kind of sum up, so we've a groundbreaking technology that reduces X-ray exposure and improves the speed and accuracy of surgical interventions. And yeah, so looking forward to answering any questions that anyone might have. Yeah, so thanks for listening.
Great, Cillian, thank you very much indeed. Wonderful presentation. Yes, no, a number of questions have come in. So perhaps you can unshare your screen so we can see each other in glorious Technicolor. How ready is the industry for a new sensor technology like this? Perhaps you can answer that.
Yeah, so like as I was mentioned, like we've sat down with the likes of Johnson Johnson and Abbott, and the big players, like the ones are literally manufacturing millions of catheters every year, and they get very excited when we start showcasing the technology, and like I suppose they straight away they get it. They see the huge advantages of what we're trying to do, because it's a pain point that they're dealing with on a daily basis, just the cost of these sensors and the fragility of what's out there currently. So there's 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 a need for it. There's an interest, and we have the technology to kind of to solve those issues that are kind of limiting getting this technology in the hands of more people. And that's kind of ultimately what we're trying to get to, that the technology is more readily accessible, that people can be benefiting from these enhanced surgical navigation tools that just haven't been accessible to date.
And with that reduction in cost, do you foresee that more and more catheters that have gone, who are which are used for kind of perhaps low rate surgeries, that they will adopt the navigation now, so that it's an improved process for the surgeons and the physicians to do this?
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of devices, a lot of catheter devices are pretty dumb devices. Effectively, it's a mechanical shaft that you insert into someone's body. You use an X-ray to see, have you hit the target, have you got the stent to the right position, or what have you. So um, and the majority of catheters are like that. And I'm not sure the exact percentage, but probably only definitely less than 10% of catheter devices out there use kind of EM navigation devices at the moment, and cost is the big barrier there. So yeah, so there's definitely a lot of potential there to really expand the use of the technology than what's currently in use.
Two questions, pretty much the same. But is there anybody else looking at on-chip sensor option? And the other question is, who are your competitors? And I know you showed a slide about that. And how close are they to releasing something to the market as well? What's your USP compared to those to those competitors?
Yeah, so just on the first question, like we, there's, we've seen quite a lot of academic work in this area. There is some of the technology out there, but we just haven't seen it translate to an actual products on the market yet. There's a lot of interest in other types of magnetic sensors that people are exploring. There's this particular type of technology called TMR, or tunneling magnetoresistance. There's a lot of talk about it in the industry, but we've never seen it being used in any kind of effective way. So there doesn't seem like there's any other companies out there that are kind of as close to market ready and as we are. So that's the first thing. And in terms of our competitors, most of our competitors are still manufacturing sensor coils using traditional methods. So it's still manual processes, effectively hand winding coils. And there are more companies coming on board every few years. Like I remember when we kind of started off, there was only maybe two or three companies that are actually making the sensors. There's now probably more, closer to 10 that are actually out there. So the market is getting more and more crowded in this kind of traditional sensor coil market. So there's more and more opportunity for something different, an alternative approach.
Next question is around the patent and the 20-year license that you've got.
Mm.
So is that an issue for the strategic partners, that 20-year bracket? Yeah, perhaps you can just expand on that.
Um, Well, it hasn't really been a major issue. I suppose it's kind of common in the industry. Even like the EM navigation technology has been around for over 20 years already. So a lot of the patents that cover some of our main competitors are already starting to expire as well. So it's not that unusual a scenario, and this is quite a mature technology. So it hasn't really been a roadblock or anything of concern that has come up.
So
Um,
what does your patent cover then specifically then? Perhaps you can just go into
so
that.
it's the entire chip kind of concept. That the fact that we have a sensor on the chip, we've all the kind of circuitry and everything that's associated with it is built into that one single device that can be attached to the end of the catheter. So the patent is kind of encompasses that whole kind of system on a chip, I suppose, if you want to call it like that. Um, and we anticipate that there'll be more patents, as we come on board, because there's probably going to, our products will probably branch into different types of chips, maybe focused on different clinical indications, for instance, so there's going to be more patents, and we're going to be expanding our patent portfolio, over the coming years.
Very good. Have you had much traction with the device manufacturers that you've spoken to?
Yeah, like we've been talking to a lot of them, and it's the kind of traction where we've been getting is, yeah, they really like the idea. They want it in their hands. They want samples, and that's kind of where we're at. That's our main aim over the next 12 months, is to actually, go from the kind of prototype kind of lab-based device that we have at the moment to something that, we can give to the likes of Abbott, and they can stick in a catheter and they can evaluate that device and see, you know, basically give us feedback, effectively of kind of, maybe it's too big, maybe it's whatever, it doesn't meet their needs, to get that very clinically relevant feedback to kind of, so we can improve our designs. And they've been quite open with us, they're kind of like, yeah, make the devices, give them to us. We're going to test them. We're going to probably break them and give you all kinds of feedback, and at that point, I'd imagine they'd be much more on board to be part of our next funding round, for instance, to kind of, once they've had that bit more of a bit more validation on their sides that, the technology is fully applicable to what they're doing. I think that's kind of our next, big thing on the horizon, to get that to really nail down those relationships.
Very good. Okay, we'll go with the last question, but there's two questions that are pretty much the same. What's the ultimate aim for the business was one of them, but what return do you see for your investors? Similar question, really.
Yeah, well, it's kind of, we are a small company with, a groundbreaking technology, like an acquisition by the likes of Abbott or Medtronic or whatever. That's where we see as, most likely endpoint, and obviously that'd be very happy if that was to come to pass. And obviously we'd see the company valuation, rapidly increasing over the coming years. So I definitely see a very significant return on all
And perhaps you could give
on
us
investors.
perhaps you could give us a kind of, nobody knows what that timeline will be, but what's your expectations? What's your hopes, and where are you planning to be on that journey?
Yeah, well, it would be the next 3 to 5 years, I would imagine, because what we imagine what would be the kind of how that would play out is, the likes of Abbott or something like that would become very interested in the technology, possibly invest to build it into one of their products. And there's quite a long gestation period on developing a new cardiac treatment device, for instance. So once we're kind of built into a device like that, I would see, the general way of things with those kind of companies. Obviously, like, they like to acquire companies so they can secure the technology, and and so that's how we would see that playing out potentially.
And with the valuation at 7.5 million at the moment, what multiple can you see that going to?
Oh, like, I suppose a couple of data points we have out there, like our main competitor, NDI, I think they're valued at about 250 million at the moment. So, if we can, get our like technology to market and start eating into their market share, like, it's very conceivable that we could reach a market valuation in that order in a short period of time. Like, um, I don't think it's going to be $1 billion company, but several hundred million. I think that's a realistic, valuation in, 5 to 10 years, or whatever that might look like.
Absolutely, and with an effective valuation of 5 million euros with EIS,
Mm.
it could be a 20x and more, of course, if we're looking at that. Okay, listen, Killian and Alex, thank you very much indeed for your presentation, and I'm glad you could answer the questions. We've got a few more as well, so I will send those on to you, and you can answer those offline. But thank you very much for your time. So to the investors, thank you very much for your time to listen to the two presentations today. Both are live on site at the moment, of course. Both are EAAS, Raypatch 50%, Quadrant at 35%. And if you do want to have a one-on-one with either Raypatch or with Quadrant, let us know. We can arrange that with either Gary, myself, Melissa, or Fergal, and we can kind of have a quick Zoom with each other to introduce you. So let us know, and we can certainly facilitate that. So thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you soon again on the next one. So thank you very much, everyone. Thanks. Bye-bye.